What if I told you that something as simple as a quilt could hold a secret? Not just pattern, not just designs, but messages, directions, even a path to freedom. It sounds unbelievable, but for years people have shared stories about something known as quilt codes, a hidden system where patterns stitched into quilts were believed to carry meaning, messages that could be seen by some, but overlooked by others. And if these stories are true, then these quilts weren't just blankets. They were tools, guides, a way to communicate without saying a word. During the time of slavery in the United States, communication wasn't always simple. Information had to be shared carefully, quietly, in ways that wouldn't draw attention. And that's where this idea becomes so fascinating. Because quilts were everywhere. They were part of everyday life, hung outside homes, laid across beds, seen without suspicion. But according to these stories, certain patterns may have carried meaning. A specific design could represent preparation. Another could signal direction. Another could suggest that it was time to move. Imagine that, a message hidden in plain sight. Something you could walk past and never realize what it meant. But for those who understood, it could mean everything. Now here's where the mystery deepens. There is ongoing debate among historians about how widespread this system actually was. Some believe these quilt codes were used as part of communication networks. Others say there's limited documented evidence. But regardless of where the full truth lands, the story itself reveals something powerful. Because whether through quilts, song, or shared knowledge, people found ways to communicate, ways to guide each other, ways to hold on to hope. And that's what makes this story so important. It's not just about whether every pattern had a specific meaning. It's about the creativity, the intelligence, the determination to find ways forward, even in situations where options were limited. Because when people are searching for freedom, they don't just wait, they adapt, they create, they find ways to move forward, even if those ways have to be hidden. And that's why stories like this continue to be shared, because they remind us that even in the most difficult conditions, there were people thinking, planning, and finding ways to help each other. But the question still remains, if messages could be hidden in something as ordinary as a quilt, what other stories have been right in front of us this whole time that we just didn't know how to see? Whether or not every quilt carried a hidden message, one thing is certain. There was a network, a real one, a system built by people who were willing to help others find a way forward. It became known as the Underground Railroad. But despite the name, it wasn't an actual railroad. There were no trains, no official tracks. Instead, it was a loose network of routes, safe places, and people who helped guide others step by step. Some offered shelter, some provided directions, some simply passed along information. Each person played a role, and most of the time, it all had to be done quietly, because communication couldn't always be direct. It had to be subtle, careful, sometimes coded in ways that wouldn't draw attention. And that's where everyday things took on new meaning. Directions might be shared through simple phrases. Songs could carry layered meanings. Timing became important. When to move, where to go, who to trust. Even small details mattered. Because the journey wasn't simple. It required planning, awareness, and the ability to read between the lines. Those moving through this network often traveled at night, following natural markers, landscapes, the stars, looking for signs that they were heading in the right direction. And along the way, there were individuals who helped guide them. People who knew the routes, who understood the risks, who were willing to assist even when it came with serious consequences. And that's what made this network so powerful. It wasn't built with formal systems. It wasn't written down in one place. It existed through people, through trust, through shared purpose. And that purpose was simple, helping others move toward freedom. Now, when you connect this to the idea of hidden messages, whether through quilts, songs, or symbols, it starts to make more sense. Because in a system like this, clear, obvious communication wasn't always possible. So creativity became essential. People found ways to signal without signaling, to communicate without speaking directly, to guide without drawing attention. And that required intelligence, strategy, and a deep understanding of the world around them. But here's what makes this even more powerful. This wasn't just about movement. It was about connection, about people helping people, about individuals choosing to be part of something bigger than themselves. And every step taken, every message shared, every moment of guidance brought someone closer to a new beginning. But even with this network in place, even with all the planning and support, the journey itself was still filled with uncertainty. Because knowing the path is one thing, but walking it is something else entirely. Knowing there was a path and actually taking it were two very different things. Because once someone made the decision to leave, there was no guarantee of what would happen next. No clear map, no certainty, just a direction, and the hope that it would lead somewhere better. The journey often began in silence, carefully, quietly, waiting for the right moment. Because timing mattered. Moving too early or too late could change everything. And once that first step was taken, there was no turning back. Travel usually happened at night, when visibility was low, when fewer people were watching, when movement could go unnoticed, and the environment itself became part of the journey. Forests, rivers, open land. Every step required awareness, listening for sounds, watching for signs, staying alert, because the unknown wasn't just about where the path led, it was about everything along the way. And yet, even in that uncertainty, there was guidance. Sometimes it came from the stars, following patterns in the sky, looking for direction in something constant, when everything else felt uncertain. Sometimes it came from memory, instructions shared beforehand, landmarks described in quiet conversations, details that had to be remembered, because they couldn't be written down. And sometimes it came from people, those along the way who provided moments of rest, guidance, support, even if only for a short time. But no matter how much preparation there was, the journey still required something deeper. It required courage, because every step forward meant stepping further into the unknown. Every decision carried weight: where to go, when to move, who to trust, and those choices had to be made carefully. But here's what makes this part of the story so powerful. Even with all the uncertainty, people kept going, step by step, moment by moment, driven by something stronger than fear, driven by the belief that there was something better ahead. And that belief became the foundation of the journey. Because when everything around you is uncertain, sometimes belief is the only thing you can hold on to. And for many, that belief carried them forward, through long nights, through difficult paths, through moments where the outcome wasn't clear, until eventually, those steps began to lead somewhere new. But reaching that point wasn't just about the journey itself. It was about what it meant. Because every step taken was more than movement. It was a decision, a statement, a refusal to stay where they were. And that's what makes this story more than just a journey. It's a story about determination, about resilience, about the willingness to move forward, even when the path isn't fully visible. But as powerful as that journey was, it didn't end when the destination was reached. Because what came next would shape something even bigger. Reaching a new place wasn't the end of the story. In many ways, it was just the beginning. Because the journey didn't just change where people were, it changed what they carried with them: the knowledge, the experience, the understanding of how powerful connection, communication, and determination could be. Everything they had learned along the way didn't stay in that moment. It carried forward, through stories, through lessons, through the way they encouraged others to keep moving forward in their own lives. And that's what makes this story so powerful. It's not just about how people moved, it's about how they thought, how they adapted, how they found ways to communicate, guide, and support each other, even when the path wasn't clear. Because whether it was through hidden meanings, shared signals, or simply trusting one another, the goal was always the same: to move forward, to find something better, to create a future that looked different from the past. And over time, those ideas became part of something larger. They became part of a legacy built on resilience, on creativity, on the belief that even in difficult situations, there is always a way to take a step forward. And today, when we look back on stories like this, we're not just looking at history, we're looking at reminders. Reminders of what people are capable of. Reminders that progress doesn't always happen in obvious ways. Sometimes it happens quietly, through small actions, through shared knowledge, through moments that might not seem big at the time, but end up shaping something much greater. Because the truth is, not every powerful story is written in bold letters. Some are hidden in plain sight, waiting to be understood, waiting to be remembered. And that's why stories like this matter. Because the more we talk about them, the more complete the picture becomes. The more we understand not just what happened, but how people thought, adapted, and moved forward. So if this is the first time you're hearing a story like this, just know this: what may have looked simple on the surface often carried deeper meaning. And sometimes, the most powerful messages are the ones you have to look a little closer to see. If you made it this far, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Untold Black History, and share it so more people can learn the stories they were never taught. And I want to hear from you. Do you think messages can still be hidden in plain sight today? Or are we just not paying attention? Because sometimes the story isn't missing. We just haven't learned how to see it yet.